There we go. Joan, you're up.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us tonight. So the title of my painting, No Water, No Life, is part of a larger quote. So it's really no water, no life, no blue, no green. And that was a quote that was inspirational to me. And it was from Sylvia Earle. And Sylvia Earle was a New Jersey native. She became an oceanographer and a founder of Mission Blue, which is an organization dedicated to protecting and restoring our oceans. She was also the first female chief scientist of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. She was named Time Magazine's first hero of the planet. She also won a TED Award for $1 million to continue to protect our oceans. And there's a lot of history about her. She's a very interesting person. And, you know, her quote to me was just very succinct. So that's what I took inspiration from. So, and it was great to hear about our local Delaware River, which was nationally recognized for its outstanding beauty and significant recovery over the last 75 years. And we just learned all about it. So that was actually very interesting. Learned a lot tonight. And it was our theme for the show. So, and I want to congratulate all of the friends of the Delaware actually who helped make that happen, and hopefully will continue to make it happen for future generations. So in my painting, my goal was to create just a clear, simple message. Water is essential for life, and all living things depend on it. So I know I do, and probably most of you do, we take a simple glass of clean drinking water for granted. And I think you know just of all the things that have been going on over the years about pollution. Most, unfortunately, not everybody and not every creature is as lucky as we are. So I believe we all realize that we must all protect and conserve and care for the precious water that we do have. So I wanted my message and my painting to be kind of bold and positive and thoughtful. And so I used a lot of warm and cool colors and worked my composition and values so that my intent was to lead the viewer's gaze to the pensive young lady and the simple glass of water. So I used a lot of warm colors, reds and oranges, to kind of express, you know, life and beauty and energy, strength and hope for our future. And a lot of cool blues and greens to represent a healthy and thriving natural world. So, and of course, the glass of water is half full. So it's a positive sign that we're making better decisions for a better future. That's basically it. So now I'd like to turn it over to Peter Cendenick, who is the painter of Rustic Reminder. Thank you.
My painting obviously doesn't show the Delaware River, but it shows a portion of the Bethlehem Steelworks, which had an impact on recovery when the plant shut down completely about 25 years ago. The painting shows a small part of the blast furnaces. The facility itself is actually about 9.5 miles long, so it's huge. And it operated right next to the Lehigh River, which flows into the Delaware. Over the past century, it operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making structural steel for buildings, bridges, and was a major contributor during World War I and World War II as far as supplying steel to build ships and planes and cannons and everything else used to fight the war. The plant employed thousands of people, and a lot of them had dangerous jobs. As the blast furnaces operated about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, one person described his first day on the job. It was just like walking into hell. And in the early part of the past century, over 500 people passed away due to accidental death. There was also not a lot of concern for the environment in this particular steelmaking process. tons of pollutants such as sulfur dioxide and many other hazardous materials went up the stacks. So when the plant closed in the mid-1990s, it definitely had a negative impact on the people and the economy and the surrounding area, but it did have a positive impact on the environment. The sulfur dioxide and the other pollutants coming up the stacks went to a stop as well. And the main takeaway is that the recovery of the Delaware River began when major sources of pollution, such as the Bethlehem steel plant, shut down. Acid rain was reduced. The fragile ecosystem in the area at river began to recover, which is vital for aquatic life. And Bethlehem itself had to recover after the shutdown itself. Today, along the side of the steel stacks, there's a public walkway that you can visit. It's 46 feet in the air. You can take an elevator up to the walkway and walk 2,000 feet along the area. When I did that for the first time, I was inspired by the rust in the steel. And I also wanted to pay a tribute to the many people who worked at the plant over the past century. The area has also done a lot of other things. They've put a film festival there every year. There are musical events annually. You may have heard of Music Fest, which just ended a few days ago. And there are 53 outdoor musical concerts annually. So that's my story. And I hope the Bethlehem steel stacks will rust in peace.
Peter, thank you so much. I know when he first submitted this painting, I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't fit the theme. And we talked and we worked it out. And I said, it totally meets the theme of the art show. And we're really grateful that you just were able to participate with this. And I believe Linda Mead has a connecting story here.
Thank you. I would love to share this story. Peter's art reminded me of this. I mentioned earlier that I was involved with co-founding the Delaware River Sojourn, which is an 8-day trip in kayaks or canoes that begins in the upper Delaware and ends in the Delaware estuary. And people sign up for 1 or more days. And our premise when we started was that we wanted to introduce people to the Delaware River so that they would learn to love it and then care for it and steward it. And the very first year of the Sojourn, which began in the mid-90s, the first day I met a very nice man by the name of Dave Simon. And Dave Simon worked at Bethlehem Steel. He had spent his entire career there. Unfortunately, he was one of the people that was laid off when the steel plant closed. And unfortunately, he was someone who had been there a long time, but not quite long enough to get his retirement and benefits. And so he was seeking recovery, and he came out on that first Delaware River Sojourn, having never been on the river before, came out in a kayak and paddled with us. And I recall about halfway through the Sojourn, his first grandchild was born. Well, fast forward years later, he goes through the recovery process of figuring out what to do with his life. And lo and behold, through the friends he met on the Sojourn, he ended up being a river guide for Kittatinny canoes out of the Delaware Water Gap. And he came to love the river. And the last time I saw him, he had 3 or 4 grandchildren on the Delaware River Sojourn with him. So it was a wonderful story of recovery. And thank you, Peter, for painting this and reminding me of such a special person, Dave Simon, and his wife, Jane Simon. Thank you.
That's a great story and a great connection. And up next, I believe we have Joanne Amentia with her unique take on the river and its inhabitants. And you'll see that she was inspired by the river itself.
Yes, thank you, Tess. So many things have been said about the science of the river and the history of the river, I was asked to talk about my particular process for this painting. One of the things is that unlike most of my artist friends who paint, I actually like the challenge of creating art for a theme show. And this year's theme, the recovery of the Delaware River, was certainly a topic that I hadn't tackled before, and it came with a lot of creative challenges. The first challenge I faced was to find a way to make a visual statement that showed a connection to the river's aquatic life and to express my feelings about the effect of a cleaner river rather than just illustrate a landscape of the river or the riverside. And so I needed to find out what happened to the river that changed it from an unhealthy waters to a cleaner one. So I Googled articles about the state of the river from the 90s till now. Having a better understanding of the river's environmental history made an impact on me, as well as brought back memories of the many times I spent sailing on the Delaware. The readings inspired me with several positive focused ideas. Once I had a general concept in mind, the next challenge was how to paint it. My intention was to keep my idea simple and straightforward as possible without overworking and killing the concept. I'm very much a material-oriented painter. Often I like to experiment with materials and let them lead me through the painting. In this particular instance, I wanted to make a real connection with the river. So I traveled up to Bull's Island along the New Jersey riverside and scooped up water and mud from the Delaware to mix them with my watercolor and acrylic inks. I wanted to see where this would take me with regards to texture, color, and paper surface. The addition of mud and water tinted the colors and gave the painting a very gritty look. The connection was complete. Painting Happy River was a positive creative experience, even though I struggled to find a way out and feeling very much like a beginner until I reached a moment of clarity. For me, it's all about the process, from the germ of an idea to seeing what works or what a painting needs. I never know how each painting will evolve. The struggle is getting to the end. Thank you.
That's couldn't be better said about painting. It's a challenge, every single one. So thank you, Joanne. And lastly, we're going to hear from Anne Green, who won Best in Show with an exceptional abstract that I think embodies the spirit of the river. Hi, Anne, and would you please tell us about your process and your painting?
Hello, good evening, everyone. First, I would like to thank Tess and her dedicated team for all of the hard work it takes to produce an art exhibit of this caliber. Thank you. Thank you also to the D&R Greenway for hosting this beautiful exhibit and for all of the work they do to promote a clean and sustainable environment. And lastly, thanks to the juror and judge, Tim Saturnow, for selecting the paintings for this exhibit. I am thrilled to have been invited to this exhibit and honored that my painting was chosen as Best in Show and awarded the Nami Warga Award. After viewing the selection of awesome paintings in the show, I am truly honored. Tess asked if I would discuss my transition from traditional art to abstract art. I painted traditional watercolor for many years with some successes and many failures. About 15 years ago, I attended a workshop in experimental water media and discovered the formula for creating an award-winning abstract painting. This began my journey and exploration of abstract art. To be honest, the formula for creating an award-winning abstract is the same for all excellent artwork: strong design, strong shapes and values, composition, and integration of all of these elements. Although we have learned about these concepts, we sometimes struggle to incorporate them into our paintings. However, the biggest takeaway for me from this workshop was that painting abstracts begins from the heart of the artist, with a loose idea or concept, or sometimes with just the intention of creating. In other words, abstract paintings are internal. They originate from within. The artist needs to disengage from the rules of creating art and allow the painting to happen. The artist needs to take some risks and just enjoy the painting process. Then, once the painting is 90% complete, that is the time for analysis. The artist applies her knowledge of art and the principles of design, shapes, values, and composition. Camping along the Delaware is painted on 300-pound Fabriano cold pressed watercolor paper using transparent watercolor. I began with a basic idea of large shapes and flowing watercolor paint. I added some dark shapes and some textural elements. I used a lot of blue pigments, which gave the painting a very cool and icy feel. I added some negative shapes and remembered to save some white paper. Although I was happy with the design, I was not happy with the overall feeling of the painting, and I put it away. I did not think about it until the call for the Garden State Watercolor Society exhibit. I was a bit stymied with producing a painting with a theme about the Delaware River, since I have not painted traditional or realistic subjects for a while. I rediscovered my painting in my portfolio and decided that the flowing blue watercolor could suggest a river. I added some greens and additional dark shapes. These could suggest a forest, and the campsite appeared. I would like to say that the painting painted itself. However, the painting came from within me. Perhaps it was a memory of rafting on the Delaware River or a hike through the forest. What it was not was a painting done from a reference photo or an image of the Delaware. I have taken additional abstract art workshops with other instructors, adding to my understanding about how to paint an abstract painting. I learned that there is no right or wrong way to paint an abstract. You must always paint what you love and enjoy the process. Each painting will be different and something that has never been seen before. Also, abstract art will evoke a unique emotional response from each person that views the artwork. Perhaps they will recall a whitewater rafting trip they experienced. After attending the experimental water media workshop, a friend and fellow artist dubbed me Abstract Annie, and in his words, there was no turning back. So enjoy the journey, success will come. Thank you.
Oh, and that's lovely again. I'm not fully in tears, but I'm tearing up anyway, because it's just beautiful. It's how we a lot of us feel about it, but don't know how to express. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
So that is the bulk of our presentation. We do have some time if anyone wants to ask any questions of any of our artists or Leslie. Congratulations to Anne Green from Nancy. So do we have, Judy, can you look and see if there's any comments? If anybody would like to ask any questions? So I want to, while we're thinking about this, I want to point out that this is one of Anne's more figurative paintings that I bought from her a while ago. See, look, there's Doris Ettlinger's enjoyed what you had to say. And like I said, people really feel like that. And it's it's great to hear it in such a succinct way. Anybody else? All right. Well, it's amazing. Yes. Linda, you want to close this out? Thank everybody and let everybody go have 2 cocktails. I know I am.
Sure, I just put in one question for Leslie. I so enjoyed your talk, Leslie. And I'm just wondering, and I think it's a great way to close it out, over your 40 years of working with the New Jersey DEP, what did you find to be, to you, the most surprising success about the river? What surprised you?
I am unmuted. Okay, what surprised me? A great question. I really do think the return of the shad, and that the fact that there was so much effort that had to be put into reducing the pollution that went in from multiple states, from multiple sources, in order to get the dissolved oxygen level up enough that those fish were not traveling through a anoxic or no oxygen zone, you know, and they couldn't get through. And that they could again, you know, living along the Delaware for so long myself, you know, the fact that there's a shad festival, wow, you know, there couldn't have been one before. And not on our time anyway. And it's just really amazing to see a water quality, you know, item. And it's not the only factor, of course, but that was really critical, result in a visible living resource restoration. I guess that's it.
Oh, it was a great answer. And I think you hit on something that's so important. You talked about the diversity of getting all the different states and all the different partners to work together to be able to make that success happen and have the shad return to the river. You know, and in a similar way, you know, we think of science and then we think of the art, you know, Tess and her crew has been just masterful in getting all the artists to work together on this theme. And really coming forth with something that is truly inspiring. And there's so much diversity in this show. So I really, you know, thank all of you. I want to thank again Tess and all the artists, the leadership of the Garden State Watercolor Society. Thank you, Leslie, for speaking and sharing the science with us. And encourage all of you to come in and take a look. One of the things that really surprised me about this particular exhibit is that great installation. When you walk into the lobby at the Johnson Education Center at One Preservation Place, Princeton, you're going to see this wonderful installation. You saw a photo earlier, and there's light and there's sound, and it just transports you to the river, and you can stand there and you can stare at it for a long time and study all of those 100 different paintings that are part of that. So come join us. And thank you everyone for being a part of this evening. It was great to see everybody, and go out and be inspired by the Delaware River. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Linda. Everybody have a drink, and thanks Judy and Jackie and everybody who participated. Yay team.
Yay.
Yay.
Go River, go Tess.
Yay. Bye-bye.